fire crackled. Rachel looked out at the falling snow. It was Christmas Eve. She was alone. Miles from town, nestled in a remote cabin, she should have felt cozy. Instead, she felt a chill crawl down her spine. The silence was unnerving. Rachel had rented the cabin looking for peace, looking to escape the city and the memories it held. It was a place to be alone with her thoughts. Now she wished for the noise of traffic, for the comforting murmur of a crowd. She took a slow sip of her hot chocolate, trying to ignore the feeling. A log shifted in the fireplace, sending sparks up the chimney. The silence returned, heavier than before. It pressed down on her, suffocating. A sudden noise from outside made her jump, a sharp tapping like branches against glass. Her heart pounded in her chest. She strained to listen, holding her breath. Rachel slowly approached the window. Her breath fogged the glass. Wiping it away, she peered out into the darkness. Her breath caught footprints in the fresh snow, leading up to the porch, stopping right outside the window. Fear, cold and sharp, gripped her. She scanned the trees, searching for any sign of movement. The wind howled through the branches, masking any other sounds. She saw nothing. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The footprints were too fresh, too deliberate. Someone had been there, watching her just moments ago. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She retreated from the window, her heart pounding. The logical part of her brain tried to rationalize. It could have been an animal, she told herself, but deep down, a primal fear whispered otherwise. Rachel tried to focus on the crackling fire. She tried to lose herself in a book, but the image of the footprints leading right to her window wouldn't leave her mind. The silence of the cabin had become menacing. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind sent her pulse racing. Hours crawled by. She jumped at every sound. The wind howled outside, a mournful, lonely sound. She tried to convince herself it was just the wind, but the fear remained, a knot in her stomach. Then she heard it again, a soft tapping right outside the window. This time there was no mistaking it. Someone was out there, watching her. She froze, her blood turning to ice. Her hand flew to her mouth to stifle a scream. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the window. She waited, every nerve ending on high alert. The tapping came again, more insistent this time. A shadow moved against the frosted glass. Panic surged through her. She stumbled back from the window, bumping into the table behind her. Suddenly the lights flickered. Then the cabin was plunged into darkness. The silence was absolute. She was trapped, alone in the dark, with what? Fear, raw and primal, threatened to consume her. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling. No signal, of course. She was stranded. She felt along the wall, searching for the fireplace. She needed light. She needed something, anything, to break the suffocating darkness. A faint glow caught her eye. It was coming from the mantelpiece above the fireplace, a small, eerie light pulsating in the darkness. Rachel's heart raced as she stumbled through the dark cabin. She could hear the wind howling outside, but inside it was eerily silent. She fumbled for the flashlight she had left on the kitchen counter. Her hands shook as she turned it on, casting a weak beam of light across the room. The shadows seemed to dance and flicker, making her feel even more uneasy. She had to find a way to protect herself. She grabbed a kitchen knife, holding it tightly as she moved towards the door. She had to get out of there, but the thought of stepping outside into the darkness was terrifying. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had to be brave. She had to survive. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the cabin, coming from the direction of the living room. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. She pointed the flashlight towards the sound, her grip on the knife tightening. The beam of light revealed a shattered window, the cold wind now rushing into the room. A figure stood in the shadows, barely visible. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. It was someone she knew, someone she thought she could trust. "Betrayal!" she whispered, her voice shaking. The figure advanced slowly, their eyes cold and unfeeling. Rachel knew she had to act fast. She raised the knife, ready to defend herself. The final confrontation was inevitable. She had to fight for her life, for her survival. The darkness around her seemed to close in, but she refused to give in to the fear. She was determined to survive, no matter the cost. Rachel's breath came in short, panicked gasps as she crept towards the door. She could hear the tapping again, more insistent this time. She knew she had to face whatever was out there. She slowly opened the door, the cold night air hitting her like a slap. She stepped outside, the snow crunching under her feet. The moonlight cast an eerie glow on the footprints leading away from the cabin. She followed them, her heart pounding in her chest. The footprints led her to the edge of the forest. She could see a figure standing there, watching her. She raised the knife, ready to defend herself. The figure stepped forward, and she could see the glint of a knife in their hand. She knew she had to fight. She lunged forward, her fear turning into determination. She would not be a victim, she would survive. As she neared the figure, a sudden realization hit her. The figure's face, now illuminated by the moonlight, was her own. Her doppelganger mirrored her every move, the same fierce determination in its eyes. Rachel stopped, her heart pounding harder than ever. She was confronting not just a threat, but her own fears and insecurities. The doppelganger spoke, its voice eerily calm. "You cannot run from yourself, Rachel. You must face the darkness within." Rachel's grip on the knife tightened, but she hesitated. This was no ordinary confrontation. She had to overcome her inner demons to truly survive. Taking a deep breath, she lowered the knife, choosing to face her fears head-on. The doppelganger nodded approvingly, then slowly faded away, leaving Rachel standing alone in the moonlit forest. She had faced the ultimate challenge and emerged stronger. The nightmare was over, and she was finally free.